Hi everyone, it's Roxanne Derhodge. Thanks for tuning in again this week to Authentic Living with Roxanne. Today I have a special colleague, Tom Dewitt, and Tom has done a lot in the global ecosystem of a customer experience. So, Tom, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you. It's great being here.
So, let me tell you a little bit about him. We want to jump into things, but he's a PhD and the founder of XM Global Collaborative, a global ecosystem created for customer experience and management practitioners, personally and professional development. He's the founder of CXM at MSU and the academic director of Masters of Science in Customer Experience at Broad College of Business and Michigan State. He has over 20 years of experience. So, Tom, just kind of tell us kind of what kind of brings you to the path of customer experience and where's the focus today? I know we're in I'm going to say a bit of a tilt with where things are going in the world.
Aren't we
Tell us a
always?
little
I think we've always been in a tilt. So, my interest in the field started when I was 14 years old, working as a busboy in a restaurant. That was my first paid job. Um, and I came to realize that I could impact the lives of people positively. Um, and I set out on a career in the hospitality industry. I have a culinary degree, I have a 4-year degree in hospitality management. And along the way, I was always intrigued by two things. One, how consumers chose and navigated experiences, hospitality and otherwise, and also how they were impacted by the employees that they engaged with and how employees approached their roles. So I worked in senior management positions in the hospitality industry, both in the US and in Asia, um, before embarking on my PhD in services marketing, which is really a predecessor or laid the early groundwork for the field of customer experience management. And for those of your listeners that don't quite know what it means, customer experience management is really the purposeful design and execution on the experiences that customers have with your organization. Much of it is very process driven, process design, but it also takes into consideration all of the physical attributes or sensory attributes that influence customers' perceptions, uh, as well as the people they engage with. So,
bit.
in its totality, Lou Carbone would classify experiences in three different categories of clues. Functional clues are everything that goes into producing a product or service, like getting your lunch order or your coffee order right. Um, and humanic clues, which are the clues given off by all of the human beings in the environment, including service personnel. And then let's see, functional, humanic. Guy, what's the other? That's terrible. Functional. Oh, well, humanic, and then mechanic clues are all of the sensory cues. So, as a consumer, when we go into experience, we're taking all that in. But, conversely, and this is where our industry comes in, understanding who those consumers are and what brought them there and what their goals were are not only in terms of functional outcomes, but also emotional outcomes. Because one thing that we realize, vast majority of decisions that consumers make are based on emotions and desired emotional states. So that's really key as well. Throw into this mix that consumers today make most of their decisions based not on advertising, but on the reviews and feedback that they get from other people. And technology just fuels this. So if you ask a group of people, what do you trust more? a third-party review from somebody you've never met, or an advertisement from a company, overwhelmingly they point to the reviews. And the reviews are the results of people's experiences. So now businesses have a vested interest in the quality of the experiences they deliver because customers are making decisions based on desired emotional states. Um, they're making decisions largely on the quality of the experience. That's a huge thing. And if a company does good or does well in that endeavor, then customers say good things about them, which will impact the decisions of other people. Um, and that's not even taking into consideration the value of customer loyalty and what that means in terms of consumer spending over the years, and how they influence other people. So this is really, what we've seen in the past 30 years, I guess, is a move away from a very product centric, transactional business model that's around here. We're going to develop this product. We're going to market the heck out of it. We're going to sell a lot. We're going to make a lot of money. And it's more about, understanding when people set out on experiences, what are they trying to accomplish? And what are its nuances, not just in the functionality, like, I always like to talk about restaurants. It's not just the quality of the food, but it's the environment in which it's provided, right? And the mood that sets. It's the
Mm.
people in which we engage in, and and that can change based on the context. Are you meeting? Are you on a date? Is it a family reunion, or are you, in terms of what you want to achieve? And it's really understanding that, and being able to deliver on it and adapt to it that makes what we do. So, you did mention things of we've had these swings and things that have
Mhm.
really driven our field for about, 10, 15 years. It was about surveys and measurements, NPS scores and customer effort scores. And now we're hearing all about AI and the use of
Mhm.
AI and the use of AI and different aspects of the experience from research, data collection, data analysis. Um, 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 uh, we hear a lot about chat baits and generative AI being used by call centers. In fact, I wouldn't even call it a conversation, but I had an interaction with a computer for about 10 minutes. Didn't fully get things resolved, and that's one of the issues. So one of the things we're facing as an industry right now is a lot of these decisions are being made based on cost savings or the belief that organizations are going to save money by using AI. But unfortunately, the majority of AI initiatives and experience management aren't meeting their ROI projections. So I think we're still in a state of flux. But AI is here to stay, and if used properly, it makes people more productive and will be able to do a better job in experience management.
So you're talking about reviews, right? So I was on at an event recently. We were talking about Reddit, for instance,
Yep.
and the impact on things like Reddit and Quora, and with marketing now, how much more the impact of YouTube is with engagement, those types of things.
Yep.
And now you throw in that little splice that you just gave in about the AI kind of bot that's kind of maybe dealing with a lot of things because companies are implementing it.
Mhm.
So if let's say I go to a high-end restaurant, if I have an expectation, like you said, if I'm going to spend a couple $100s for a nice meal to feel a certain way, but let's say something's off, right? Like maybe I've gone there a lot. The odds are that more than likely I'm going to kind of not, I'm going to kind of shelve it under one-time experience. Do you find that in this economy right now, are people still more likely to stay with a brand that they've always liked if there's a
Yeah.
one-off, or
Oh
are
yeah.
they more likely to kind of be reactive and go in and write the review and those types of things?
So a couple things going on here. I'm glad you touched on this area because I enjoy it. The reality is we want to be in monogamous relationships with brands we can trust, right?
Hmm.
And the reality is, to your point, the longer we're in a relationship, the higher is the trust. So two things happen here. One, we're more forgiving. So it's
Hmm.
like, your point, you go, that was a one-off. That, in
Right, right.
all my experiences, that doesn't happen very often. The other thing that happens is because we value that relationship so much and we want to see it endure and we want to see them do well, oftentimes we'll provide feedback because we want it fixed,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? As opposed to the person who hasn't been there very long, they see a mistake and they go, well, I'm not coming here anymore. I'm going to go someplace else. To that point, technology has lowered switching costs. So when you think about what it used to take to find alternatives and evaluate them, it was a very laborious, you
Hmm.
had to go to the yellow pages. Remember those? Right? And where
Tom,
are
I
you going to
remember them.
learn? There's no internet. Where are you going to learn about the food quality? The switching
Right.
costs were so much higher. So
Absolutely.
when
Yeah.
if I try another restaurant, well, where are you going to go and why? Well, now you can do like I do. I go to my phone. My favorite search feature is restaurants near me. And I
Mhm.
go through there, I look at the high scoring and I look. So, you know, it's important that, and I think this is where a lot of businesses fail too, is it's important to invest in the relationship with your customers and to consistently offer repeated satisfactory encounters, which means you need to know what they expect and why, and you need to be able to deliver on that consistently. And technology can help you to do that, but you got to be able to deliver at a high level, right? And that's why I
Mhm.
still think there's a strong desire for human interaction. Technology can do certain things, and it doesn't need to be at a high-end restaurant. I go to Panera quite often, and
Yeah.
they've used their app to great advantage for ordering and tracking and rewards points and things like that. But where they often fail is maybe because of staffing shortages. I'll come up and there will be a note on the door excusing the service today because they're shorthanded.
Mm.
So there's only, so as an organization, if you go all in on technology and you ignore your people and the internal processes that drive employee engagement, how they feel about their job and how they feel about the organization, you can fail in that way too, right? So yeah, don't get
And I that
the,
like well, of course I talk about the ROR, right? Which is all about relationship. Like, it's
that's so
one
critical.
thing,
Yep.
it's one thing to like with your management, I often talk about with employees, they may have a beef or they may have a disgruntled kind of perspective or diametrically opposed kind of position from yourself and kind of what the vision and the mission is for the environment. But I think it's sometimes listening to a different perspective, which may have validity. It doesn't mean it needs to be negated altogether. But it's when you kind of like I was recently talking to somebody about um, the generations in the workforce at present, right? And kind of the newer generation and how they are coming from, you know, working and leading from a different space, say, compared to some older generations. And they're, quote unquote, we call them entitled, or they're coming in and they have different goals, say, compared to the baby boomers or stuff like that. And ultimately, you're still having to manage all those individuals. And you want them you want to lead them to success, obviously, to your brand or whatever. Um, how open do you think from the companies that you're dealing with that are very successful to that diametrically opposed position with some of the different generations
Well, I
about
would
about
say,
decision making?
yeah, I would say not that they're diametrically opposed. Maybe the value system is different, but not in a bad way. What I've seen the younger generation is they put a higher value on quality of life.
Hmm.
Our generation, we just work way too hard.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I admire the younger generation for that. My wife and my daughter, in terms of her physical health, her mental health, and she's much more well-rounded I think that's a good thing. Um, what I guess the overriding principle for me is if you have a truly customer-centric organization, or maybe you don't call it customer-centric, but everyone wants to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves,
Hmm.
right? They want to feel that what they do every day matters. And I would argue maybe the younger generation feels that more than my generation did. Um, Particularly if you're a customer-centric organization, it's easier to make that connection, right? Whether you work in accounting or you work a frontline role, if 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 I understand you as an individual and why you're there, what you're hoping to get out of your work, and I'm helping to develop you in that role and show you a path forward, but also help you to understand how you're part of a greater group of people that's
Hmm.
here to understand and meet the needs of their customers in a meaningful way. Now, isn't that worth getting out of bed for every day and going to work, as opposed to not knowing, which is often the case that I've seen, where employees don't know much about the vision or mission or direction of their organization or its values or how they fit in. And you think about how that affects your psyche and leaves you open to leaving when things go wrong. But if you understand, hey, this is what, and I've always, and I know this is, I want to talk about diametrically opposed, that companies should be in the business of serving, understanding and serving the needs of their customers, and being profitable allows them to continue to do so. I think if I work for a company like that and that's how we operate it every day, I'd feel pretty good about what we do. And my research has shown that. I've run measurement scales, internal internal samples and organizations, multiple organizations measuring customer centricity and employee engagement. And not surprisingly, they're very highly correlated on many dimensions because I think that resonates with people, whether it's the younger generation or the older generation, maybe more so with the younger generation.
I think you're right, and but that's where we come down to leadership or
Yeah,
management levels or supervisory, and the frontline people are so key fundamentally, right? And they are touching the customer that's walking through that door. If it's a physical environment or if it's a
yeah,
digital environment, there's still a feel that you want to experience. And when
exactly.
I was an executive in health and wellness, for instance, huge company. And, oftentimes when I would get concerns about the quality of service, um, initially I would deal with them alone, Tom, because it was a
Mm,
smaller
mm,
company. My accounts that were attached to me, the complaints would come directly to me. I would take the time. And then as we got bigger and bigger, what happened is there was a QAR arm, right? So then there were layers, which made a lot of sense because of the how much the company had grown. But what ended up happening is the quality of that touch point when there was a concern got removed from myself as the executive. So the length
mm,
of time that it sometimes took to resolution got longer. And clients would, just be horrified, right? Like, I mean, someone's been sitting on a line, for instance, they're calling in for psychological service. Um, Hopefully they've been triaged and there's nothing critical, but generally there wasn't anything
yep,
critical.
yep,
But they still would time the length of time, oftentimes, and into the contract, some things would say it has to be within a certain times, and then every quarter, as they increase the supposedly efficiency of quality assurance, the length of time got
yep,
longer and longer to
yep,
resolution.
yep.
So you'd have these massive companies freaking out,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And we would obviously try to kind of address things. But what was most important in me, myself as the executive running the accounts, was the relationship I had. So I could pick up that phone and say, well, when Tom called in, from Buffalo, the wait times were blah. This is what happened.
mm,
This is what we've done to address it. But because there were so many levels, by the time I got to people already peeved.
mm,
So I couldn't, by the time the explanation would have
yeah,
gotten to them, they were like already, saying when your other customers do, other clients do this,
Yeah.
other companies do this, and then it ended up being like a big thing.
Mhm, mhm.
So with bigger companies today, what are they doing to address kind of that lag time? Okay, we have systems, like you said,
Yeah.
AI, right? But are there certain things that you're seeing that's working and that's not working out there?
Yeah.
What
Well,
kind of,
it all comes back to the fundamental principles for complaint handling and resolution. First of all, um, people want interactional justice. They want to feel that
Mhm.
that what they're coming to you with is understood and it's valued. Um, and so they want apologies. They want you to take ownership
Mhm.
of it, right? Be understanding. It's hard to do that with technology in a meaningful way, particularly if people figure out they're talking to a computer. I got some of this from, I'm like, okay, whatever, I know you're
And
programmed.
am I talking to a human today or
Yeah,
where am I?
yeah, right.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
want procedural justice. Make it easy for me to do this. And,
Mhm.
part of that procedural justice is informing people of wait times. It's saying, what you're seeing a lot with technology now is, you can expect to wait this long, or we can call you back. Would you like to be called back at this number?
Mhm.
Now, you think about that. Now, all of a sudden, I can hang up the phone. I can go back to what I was doing. I can forget about it, right? Steam goes away, and then they call me back. So that's really key, procedural justice.
Mhm.
And then distributive justice is a resolution fair, and I think it's understanding the extent, the amount of damage that's been caused, and are you coming up, and it's not always about giving things away. Often it's just answering their question or providing them with a solution that meets the um, the problem that they came to you with. And sometimes you can do this with technology, I think, with chatbots and so forth, with a large enough database, they're able to identify the appropriate solution and pretty quick. But two of the biggest reasons why AI initiatives and contact centers don't meet their ARI is from a lack of sufficient data. So you ask a question and it queries. I don't have an answer to that question right now. Or you may want to, that just frustrates you more, right? Or a failure to integrate with existing systems. So I think
Mhm.
oftentimes organizations rush into this a little too fast with cost savings as the primary driver rather than improving the quality of the outcomes, and that should always be the primary focus, right? Um, so I think that's, there's a potential there, but it's a matter of melding both technology and humanity and human beings in that conversation. And I think
And we're not there yet.
we're
And a
not
lot
there.
of
No,
companies,
we're way off.
well, a lot of companies are trying to get to it quicker and implementing and
Too
thinking
quick.
this broad
Yeah.
brush of we're going to just implement all the AI strategies and it's going to, and
And
then they're
hopefully it'll
forgetting the
stick.
human the human element is getting lost.
Yeah,
And with the human element being lost, they perceive that that's going to address all the concerns. Like you said, their bottom line is going to be, a certain amount's going to be shaved off and we'll be all good. And then you have your human capital kind of leaving and going out in droves because they're like, when you're working for a company and you're getting the consistent, like for this particular company, after a while they had grown so quick in such a short period of time. So they didn't kind of plan proactively for the extent of their growth. So, of course, unfortunately, as the layers got um, deeper with myself as an executive, the complaints were the same. Or
mm,
and then you're like just hoping that you can rely on the relationship, but after a while, you can't go
yeah,
back and say, "I'm so sorry. By the way, we've chopped a minute off, but
yeah,
now something else has gone awry."
yeah, yeah.
So I think it's you're so right. It's kind of looking at what strategies are you going to implement because you're looking at the outcomes, and then how is your faithful customers that are going to stay with you? They're still going to be upset if now the quality kind of dips at a certain level as well.
Absolutely.
Now, I know you are we're at a timeline crunch for you today, but based on the economy today,
Yep.
and for companies that are really, really looking to hold on to what business is and really continue to strive to increase business and keep the good customers that they have at present and attract new. Are there a couple of points that companies should be thinking about on the customer experience
Sure.
and to
Yeah, sure.
implement?
Well, first of all, look at your core competencies. Don't look for quick fixes. You know, truly understand what it means to be a customer-centric organization in terms of your day-to-day operating practice and how customer experience management fits into that. Invest in qualitative research.
Mhm.
There's so many limitations to survey data, so many. Invest in qualitative research. We still need to do depth interviews, whether they're done virtually or in person. Um, Take the time to understand where your customers are coming from and what they're trying to accomplish. Um, and create purposely driven experiences that are focused on both functional and emotional outcomes for the consumer.
Mhm.
And be conscious of the clues that I've laid out in every touch point and how do they reinforce that? How are they moving them closer? Whether it's an insurance product, you name it. It could be anything, right?
Mhm.
There's a reason why I go to Panera. It's not the coffee. The coffee's good, but it's because the environment provides me with a setting where I can work and relax
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
everything, right? So you got to be conscious of all that, and then continuously improve. Customer needs and desires are changing constantly, as is their ability to utilize technology. So, and then maybe the last thing is utilize technology to improve your core competencies, not to save money, but to make you more productive. You'll be more profitable. But, choosing and using AI, it has to come based on what is it going to help you to improve and how, and not cost savings, right? How
Not
can,
cost savings, not the
yep,
bottom line,
yep,
not the bottom line again.
yep,
So, for people that are wanting to learn more, now that you have a conference coming up,
yep.
you want to tell people a little bit about it. I'm also a keynote speaker at the event. Tom, tell people a little bit about it if they are interested in signing
Sure,
up and
sure.
learning more about it.
Sure. Well, they can learn more about me on LinkedIn. I'm Tom Dewitt, PhD. I think I'm the only one there. The XM Global Collaborative. There they can learn more, or they can go to our website, www.xmgc.org. And there they can learn about our conference, the XM Global 360. Um, we're offering two programs in the Eastern and Western Hemisphere, beginning in Hanoi at 9 a.m. on May 21st, and then the Western Hemisphere at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in New York City. Um, Three 45-minute sessions. Each one you can choose from one of four to five different sessions. So people have choices, and all the sessions are recorded. So you'll be able to watch them. You have up to 30 days in the platform to watch the recordings. And if you become a member of the collaborative, you can watch them through your member portal that every member has.
Awesome. Well, Tom, thanks so much for your time. And I also have the privilege, like I said, on presenting on the elements of relationship and the bottom line, the ROR, which is the return versus the investment. So I will be putting a link in the show notes so that if you're interested in attending and signing up and joining the collaborative, that would be a great thing. So again, Tom, thanks so much. And for
All right.
everybody,
Thank you, Roxanne.
thank you. Anybody looking to connect about the ROR Masterclass, just reach out to me at Roxanne at roxannederhodge.com for more details. Again, thank you, Tom. And everyone, take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Take care. Thanks, Roxanne. I'll jump
Thank
off.
you.
You bet. Bye bye.